You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. As prices continue to rise, vehicle affordability is a pressing concern for many consumers and dealers. Today we're joined by Dennis Gingrich, who is the Sales and Finance Director at Niello Company, to bring us up to speed on what he's seen in his markets. So Dennis, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim. I really appreciate being here.
Sure. So how are consumers reacting to these price increases that they're seeing? I mean, affordability is at the top of everybody's list for every dealer for every consumer, I should say, that's going out to look at cars. To think that a new vehicle average price is almost 50 grand, man, it's stunning, right?
No, it's definitely stunning. I mean, when we think back not all that long ago in the heyday of COVID, it was certainly easy to be frivolous with 2-3% money, and I think those days are long behind us.
I know.
And I think every consumer, when you look at inflation, the price of eggs, gas, so on and so forth.
Sure.
I just think consumers are getting a little bit fatigued, and I think it's just incumbent upon us dealers to be mindful of that and come up with ways to, make a good ownership experience and offset that affordability challenges we're seeing. Not only the price of cars, repair, so on and so forth.
Sure. Is leasing making a big comeback from the low COVID numbers of maybe 15 or 20%? I know that the industry always ran at about 30% or higher across the board, but then it took a huge hit during COVID. Is that coming back now? Are you seeing more people?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing leasing making a comeback across our brands. We represent, a number of brands, and during COVID, leasing was basically non-existent. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely making a comeback. I think back to a couple NADAs ago, two NADAs ago, and listening to some of the OEMs talking about, hey, we're going to get serious about leasing. In the industry, quite frankly, we need it for retention. Obviously, there's a lot less used cars out there. We're starting to hit that peak where we weren't leasing at all, and we're not seeing those cars come back into inventory, which obviously makes it a little bit of a challenge for those consumers that are looking for affordable options that we just don't have the pre-owned to fill that demand as much as
right. But leasing can certainly combat some of these high numbers, right? I mean, that we're seeing out there. It's a great way for somebody to acquire the car that they want and not have to pay the full price, or the full price if you were going to be buying it, right?
Yeah, no, that's no question about that. And I think too, when you look at not only affordability, I think people are, you've got to think about affordability in the long term. If you're a dealer, specifically, we look at our sales and finance managers, everything is expensive. And when you think about ownership, I was looking at an article not long ago, just talking about, overall reliability, dependability is not what it was. Cars aren't getting more reliable. We're also seeing the average cost of repair, it's going through the roof. And I think it's very important for us to talk to our sales and finance professionals to make sure they're aware of that, to make sure they're informing the customers, to obviously create a need, because there are things out there, maintenance policy, service contract, that I think now more than ever really do make a lot of sense for consumers, because we got almost $300 an hour when it comes to labor rates, and then you couple that with cars not being reliable as they once were. Something we got to be aware of and something to talk to about with our customers.
Sure. Are EVs more or less affected by these pricing pressures compared to traditional vehicles?
Well, from what I've seen, the repairs, I know I've read quite a bit about, and we actually internally, we have a labor rate that's substantially higher for EVs. It does take a skilled technician to work on those vehicles.
Sure.
There's a lot of training. There's also a lot of risk that goes along with working on an EV. So, we're just seeing those repair costs are going up, and then in those articles, just the overall reliability. It isn't quite there yet, and I think that goes along with anything new, right? We've been making engines, transmission, and axles for over 100 years. EVs aren't quite that old. So, I think we'll continue to see, improvements in that area. But in the short term, we definitely have to be aware of, the cost to repair in the long term to talk about the customers.
Sure. And then what about insuring EVs? Is that something you hear a lot about the cost of insurance these days? It's gone up that's added actually to the inflation rate in a very big way. It's contributed, the high cost of insurance has contributed to the inflation rates that we're seeing. But what does it look like when it comes time to insure EVs?
Yeah, I mean, looking at, from what I've been reading, I saw, Mark, something, 10, 12% more premium for an EV. And when you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, these cars, they don't have that delay that we're accustomed to, on an ICE car. You hit the gas pedal, you're off to the races quick and in a hurry.
Yeah.
Which, if you're not used to it, I could see that,
Yeah.
causing those insurance rates. Plus, they're heavier than their traditional counterpart, and you get something going fast that weighs a lot and it runs into something. It's not a good equation for being able to repair. And plus, just to repair them, it's, significantly more expensive than an ICE engine car.
Sure. Is your group actively purchasing pre-owned EVs?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely in the game of acquisition. We want to, anything that we're looking to buy, we want to have a plan, whether that's, making sure that we can put a quality product out on our lot that's priced right, that we can turn quickly because, again, going back to the days of low rates, having some inventory sitting around wasn't a big deal. But now with the way flooring and issues, you just got to go in with a plan. You got to put a quality product with a great experience, and
Sure.
It's got to be priced right, and it works out. I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but we'll definitely buy EVs. We just, we price them to sell.
Right. And do you feel the consumers are there for pre-owned EVs?
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty regional. Pardon me. We're out here in Sacramento, California, which
Okay.
by all accounts, when you talk to our OEMs, they see Sacramento as one of the preeminent markets for EV adoption. Across the group, we have Volkswagen, we have Audi, we have BMW, even
Yeah.
Porsche's there, Volvo, and all of those stores that have a heavy presence in the EV. We're doing quite well amongst our competitors, but that's making sure our team's trained up. They know everything there is to know about EV because it's different. There are still consumers that have questions, and and we just have to be prepared to answer those questions and support the OEM. And obviously, the country's going to EVs. Doesn't seem to be any brakes on that. So we just got to be ready for it.
That's right. And of course, California's been leading that charge ever since I think they built the first EV. Right. I mean, you're envied by a number of other dealers in other states that say, man, if we could sell EVs at the rate that the California dealers are selling them, that's a different story, right?
Yeah, no, it is a different story. I got a buddy that works across country, and they're not, they want to sell EVs. It just doesn't seem like it's caught up there. But I don't know. We always notice things start from one coast or the other and eventually come into the middle, and we get there. So I guess we're just on the forefront of this EV jam. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, one of the interviews that we've conducted recently was with a large F&I company, and they're doing a lot in the way of remote deliveries, virtual deliveries, where if your dealership gets too busy on a Saturday afternoon and you're 3 deep in F&I at 3 o'clock, that they will then have one of their employees, right, in a call center type setup, deliver that vehicle for you. What's your take on that? Do you think that is a viable option, or do you use that at your stores, or what does that look like?
No, that's interesting. Working predominantly in the luxury automotive space, BMW, higher end of the market,
Sure.
we're definitely no stranger to selling cars, desirable cars outside of our market.
Yeah.
Having spent the majority of my career in the F&I office, I really look at it as really no different than someone that's coming into my store. I want to have control of that customer experience. I know what the Niello Company stands for, and it's something that it's part of our business. We're not a stranger to getting on the phone, scheduling a webinar or a Zoom call, whatever you want to call it, and
right.
Using all the tools that are available now to have that F&I experience with those consumers, going over their option. And quite frankly, our guys and gals, they do a great job at getting great penetration across all the F&I products we offer. So that's something that we want to train that, do that in-house. And I think it just comes from practice. And I'm sure there's places that have a need for it. If you can't justify having multiple F&I managers, I feel like that would be a bridge to the next volume.
Yeah, and I think that's what they mentioned, was the fact that if you've got a setup where you got two F&I people and it's just slammed on a weekend or a holiday weekend or what have you, as sometimes is the case, oftentimes is the case, it's tough. And all of a sudden that customer's waiting maybe 2 hours or longer, just to get into the box, and that can create a very unhappy customer when it comes time for CSI surveys, right? So
well, and I think one thing that we do, and I think it works well for us, but we have our salespeople really involved in the F&I process. They are talking about our F&I products before they actually go into F&I, and I think that does a couple things. I mean, there's been studies where people like F&I products, they just want to learn more about them before they've got to make a decision. So by doing that, I think we accomplish a number of things. I think it abbreviates that time in the office a little bit, but I think more importantly that I'm most pleased that I see is we've had a lot of success promoting salespeople as of late into our F&I offices. So they're starting to develop their career, to F&I managers, turn into sales managers.
Yeah.
And it works for us from a profitability standpoint, but more importantly, just a career development standpoint. And I think that's why we're here, is to raise great automotive professionals.
That's right. How do you feel about the balance of the year?
I feel good about the balance of the year. I mean, there seems to be a lot of waiting relative to rates, but still we've had a lot of people sitting on the sidelines from COVID that weren't interested in paying all these markups. We're starting to see incentives out. There's stuff in the news that there's deals to be had out there, and I think those consumers, they're going to have to get back into the market.
Yeah.
The average age of a vehicle right now is as high as it's ever been. So
that's right.
I think there's some market forces that are going to drive people and carry us out through the end of the year.
Are you having difficult conversations with consumers that bring those vehicles in that they purchased 2 or 3 years ago, at sticker price or above, and now they're in your showroom wanting to trade them? Has that been a difficult task?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but I think one of the nice things about the market, or relative to 20 years ago, all the data is out there. The consumer can see it. We can see it.
That's true.
To a large extent.
That's true.
It's not magic, it's math. So you just
right.
talk to them, intelligent. But do they all end well? I wish I could say they do, but you just got to go in there with some compassion, logic, and
Yes.
I'd like to say we succeed more than we fail.
That's right. That's great. Dennis Gingrich, Sales and Finance Director at the Niello Company. That's a fantastic auto group that you've probably heard so much about if you've been watching the auto industry over the last 20 years. These guys are doing some great work, and they got great franchises. So thank you so much, Dennis, for joining us on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate being here. Hope you have a great week.
Thank you. Best of luck to you.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.